Okay guys, I have a 2007 Chevy Suburban, same one I did a steering shaft on. His complaint is random low speed ABS activation when you're pulling into a parking spot, turning real slow out of somewhere, hitting the brakes. A lot of times it'll throw an ABS code for a wheel speed sensor. Don't bother replacing the wheel speed sensor, it doesn't do it any good. What ends up happening is rust builds up under the wheel speed sensor on the wheel bearing, and it increases the gap enough that you'll get that low speed activation, and the only fix for it is to replace the wheel bearing. So we're going to go ahead and start doing that. This torque bit that holds the rotor on is a T30. They tend to really get rusted in there, so I just put it in and kind of give it a good whack. Felt like it broke loose. There it goes. And guys, if you find these videos helpful at all, please subscribe. It helps support the channel, and it helps motivate me to do more videos. Okay, this, I have an 1 and 7/16, so I think that's a 34 millimeter. A lot of times these get stuck in there. You can see this one moves pretty free, so I don't have to pound it to get it out. But if you do have to hit that, make sure you thread the nut on quite a few turns before you start whaling it with the hammer, so you don't damage the threads of the axle shaft. Next up, on the back side here, there's two 18 millimeters that hold the caliper bracket in place. I normally leave the caliper itself on, take the bracket and everything off at one time to save a little bit of time. Here's the two caliper bracket bolts, 18 millimeter. Work the caliper off, set it there, take the brake rotor off. Now on the back side, you can see there's three 15 millimeters. There's one there. There's one right there. And then there's a third one down there. Makes it a little easier to get to it if you push this in. Then that'll give you a little bit more clearance to actually get a socket on there. Here you can see where the ABS sensor bolts in. And what happens, like I said, is rust gets built up under there. Lifts that plastic up just enough that it will make it lose signal every once in a while, especially at low speeds. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and zip these three wheel bearing bolts out. It's very difficult to get on them with an impact swivel, but it's also even more difficult to take them out by hand the whole way. Alright guys, so for this one, it's too hard to get a swivel on it. I hit that on with the hammer because you want to make sure that's on good, because you don't want to round that bolt off. Now, these are normally really tight, so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll either take my hammer and whack it, or I'll take an extension and a deep socket like this and use that for leverage. Now to get to the last one, I just angled it. And if you guys are doing this at home and you only have one wheel jacked up, it might be easier if you just pop the outer tie rod off. So that way you can angle this easier to get to what you need to get to. There we go. Now I'm just going to pop out these little plastic clips that hold the bearing on. or hold the wheel bearing sensor in. Good, I got the sensor out. In a perfect world, these will pull right out, and this one looks pretty loose. But normally what you're going to have to end up doing is getting a big hammer or a sledgehammer and just start wailing this to get it off. Once you get it off, you got to make sure you save the backing plate, put it on in the right direction. I'm also going to run my die grinder over this quick. Make sure I have a nice flat surface for that bearing to sit on. Alright guys, we got the new wheel bearing here with the new ABS sensor already installed. I'm going to put the backing plate on. Make sure you have the wire oriented so it's going through the little window on the backing plate. I'm just turning it a little bit to get it on the splines of the axle shaft. Alright guys, I got the bolt holes lined up. I want to make sure these are all started a couple threads before I start tightening them up. Because when you tighten this up, the wheel bearing is going to kind of pop to the one side, and then you're not going to be able to get one of the bolts started if they're not all started already. So there we go. They're all loosely started. After I get the other two bolts tightened back up, I'm going to go back to that one to make sure it's still tight. Sometimes when you pull that bearing flush, it'll make that other one a little looser. Now I got it angled, I'm going to hit this one down here. Alright guys, so now I'm going to tighten this last one here. So I'm not going to rely on the impact alone. Use my little breaker bar. Go through and check all these real well. Now that they're all checked, I'm going to go ahead and get the rotor put back on. I want to make sure there's no chunky rust stuck to the back of it that will cause vibration over time. I'm going to throw the brake caliper back on. Got my two 18mm caliper bracket bolts. Put the axle nut back on. I'm going to reroute and reinstall the ABS sensor wire. So you want to definitely make sure you reinstall all these clips, because you do not want this thing rubbing up against the tire and ruining your brand new sensor that you put on because of a mistake you made or for a customer. So that's snapped in. There we go. That's how you do a wheel bearing to fix an ABS issue on a Chevy truck. I'll put the links in the description for the parts off Amazon. Gonna throw the wheel back on, torque it down to 140 foot-pounds, and we'll be good to go. Thanks guys, and have a good day.